Welcome to episode 34 of Book Nerd Paradise, where we get to know an author as they tell us one of their favorite quotes, read from their work, pose a trivia question, and give away a book or two. Hi, I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Fantasy Adventure Series. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, but want to reiterate, if you haven't already, please feel free to get the eBook copies that are free. So there's the prequel, Power of the Air's Passion, and then book one of the Andy Smithson series, which is called Blast of the Dragon's Fury. And those are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play for free. Today, we welcome YA fantasy author Beth Barany as our guest. Beth is the award-winning author of the Five Kingdoms fantasy series. She also writes sweet paranormal romance novellas for her growing Magical Tales of Romance and Adventure series to transport you into worlds of possibility and magic, where she also loves to go. When she's not writing, she works with novelists to help them create and publish compelling stories and then effectively market them. She also loves to do Brazilian martial arts, so look out, people, she's dangerous. She loves to travel near and far, including, yes, indeed, Paris, and watch action and funny movies with her husband. They live in Oakland, California, with their cat Leo, amidst creative chaos and lots of books, art, and collages. Please join me in welcoming Beth Barany.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
So you'll be reading from your award-winning YA fantasy novel, Henrietta the Dragonstone. This is the second book in the Five Kingdoms series. So that we can get a feel for your book, would you give us a brief synopsis?
Absolutely. What if all those you loved were threatened by a force you couldn't see or fight? Henrietta, the legendary dragon slayer, wants to return to her village for a hero's welcome, but an unknown sorcerer rides after her and her dragonstone and aims to destroy everyone she cares about. Can she claim her newfound powers sparked by the dragonstone and keep her loved ones safe? Or will the sorcerer destroy everyone and everything she loves?
So Beth, you've selected one of your favorite quotes. What is it and why is it a favorite?
My favorite quote these days is, "The legs are the wheels of creativity." And Albert Einstein said this, and I even have a pretty printout that we can show everyone right here. And the reason I chose this is when I'm stuck with my writing or I have a problem to work out in my life, I pace around the house or I go for a walk. And I really am constantly amazed at how things start to unlock and unblock, and I feel the flow of creativity. And it's so simple. It's just one foot in front of the other, and it's I take a deep breath after about 5 minutes, and I just feel like things start to lift away, the problems start to dissipate, and I start to come up with solutions. Plus, it feels good. I'm outside, especially the pacing around the apartment is fun, but the outside is way better. And just get to see and be and experience different influences than just the influence I was under when I was in that stuck moment, whether I was working on a story or something else. So I just love that the solution to many of life's problems can be solved with a good, brisk walk.
So Beth, you're also giving away a book or two. What are you giving away?
So I'm going to give away to one grand prize winner. I'm going to give away the print editions for book one. And here's a copy of book one, or sort of, Henrietta the Dragon Slayer. And then book two, I showed everyone, but here's the other side of my bookmark. I will ship these two books anywhere in the world. I will sign them and ship them. I love sending books to readers around the world. So that's a grand prize. And then for two more winners, I'll happily send you digital editions of these two books, plus the prequel that comes before book one, the prequel to Henrietta the Dragon Slayer.
Awesome. Boy, so everybody's a winner no matter where you live. That's great. So just to recap, there's three prizes this week. So there's first prize is signed paperbacks of book one and two. That's to anywhere in the world. And then the other two are the ebook copies of the prequel, book one, and book two.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you leave a comment in the comment section below so that you will be entered to win one of these prizes. So that's awesome. I'll do the drawing on the Saturday after the episode, and then we'll immediately contact our 3 lucky winners. Thank you so much. That's awesome. You'll be reading from your award-winning novel, Henrietta and the Dragonstone, which is the 2nd book in the 5 Kingdoms series. Would you briefly set up the portion you'll be reading from and then share with us?
This section is from somewhere in the middle of book 2, Henrietta and the Dragonstone, where Henrietta and her companions are in a carriage riding to the capital city in a hurry so that Henrietta can deliver a secret message to the king. It all happened so fast. The Dracontius flared hot. Henrietta jolted and reached for her sword. She heard yells and shouts from outside, low and guttural. The carriage skidded sideways and bumped over something in the road, nearly tipping to one side. Henrietta flew forward. Leonie and Antoine were pushed sideways and back. Henrietta dropped her sword and put her hands out to stop herself from crushing either of them. The carriage righted itself and doors flew open. Henrietta didn't hesitate. She grabbed her blade. Her whole chest and arms felt hot. "Stay," she shouted to Leonie and Antoine. Henrietta leapt out of the still-moving carriage. She rolled cleanly and tumbled to her feet. It felt like old times again. Joy, quickly crushed by dread at the coming attack, spread through her chest. Then it was just the fight. From the roof of the carriage, Frank had jumped to the ground and was swinging away at broad-shouldered, tall, hairy men. Henrietta could only catch a glimpse because she had her own group of dirty, smelly men to contend with. Varangians. 5 tall men swung clubs and swords at her. She parried and defended, getting hotter under her skin by the minute. Her vision darkened, and yet she still stepped side to side to stop crushing blows and keep the men in front of her. Even though they were dressed like Bluvian farmers, they had to be Varangians. They were taller and of broader shoulder than most Bluvians, including soldiers. Her focus narrowed as the Dracontius burned her skin. She slashed and ducked and thrust her sword, managing to down 3 men in quick succession. But then more stepped in their place, charging with wild grins and a low chant on their lips she couldn't make out. There were too many. A dozen at least on her, maybe more. Henrietta felt the Dragonstone burn hotter than it ever had before. She felt, more than saw, her friends, the crows, circling and diving in. She focused on the fight. As soon as she cut down a fighter, another one seemed to take his place. Magics surely were at work here. Crows swirled overhead and cawed. They dove and flapped around the heads of the enemy, pecking at ears and eyes. A few men fell in a panic and swiped their swords wildly, trying to fend off the black birds flapping around their heads. The cows mooed and stampeded toward them. 2 cows headbutted 2 fighters in the back. The men yelled in surprise and pain as they went flying into a field. Foxes yipped nearby. Henrietta saw them go for ankles, growling and gripping pant legs in their sharp teeth. Several more fighters turned from Henrietta and Frank to fend off the wild creatures. In the distance, the wolves howled. It would only be a matter of time before they attacked the enemy's jugular. But could she hold out for that long? She always seemed to have 5 or 6 fighters swinging at her with swords and clubs. Henrietta knew with a certainty she'd never felt before. She and all her companions were going to die. Henrietta pushed that thought from her head, not if she had any say about it. A great whooshing sound filled her head. Her body heated from the furnace of her rage. The Dragonstone fueled her. The animals responded in fury. Frank saw Henrietta go berserk, swinging her sword over her head, slashing and yelling at the top of her lungs. By some kind of sorcery, her sword's movement lifted muddy snow and leaves off the ground into a whirlwind and obscured her from his view. He'd never seen such a thing around her before, around anyone on or off the battlefield. But he couldn't stop to find out what was happening to her. He had his own fight. He huffed his way through blocking and parrying with one man and then another. They had to be Varangians, yet they were dressed like any other farmer he'd seen along the roads and in the taverns in Bluv. Now that he was fighting the Varangians during the day, he noticed that their eyes were glazed over, like they were blind to their surroundings. They mumbled something under their breaths. He couldn't make out the words between the metallic hiss of swords crashing against each other and the sounds of the animals attacking the fighters surrounding Henrietta. The Varangians had to be ensorcelled. That had to be it. He was down to 3 men and had only been nicked a few times on the shoulders. Maybe the Varangians were captured by sorcery, but they weren't the toughest soldiers he'd fought. He was happy at least for that. He had to get out of this fight as soon as possible. Above the clamor of the fight, he heard Henrietta yell in agony. Something was wrong with her. Warning bells went off in his head, yet he couldn't stop fighting to rush to her side. All he could do was step closer toward her.
Our guest author last week posed a trivia question for us.
So my question was, J.R.R. Tolkien, when he was writing The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, belonged to a writers group in Oxford. What was the name of that group? And the answer is the Inklings.
So Beth, you have a trivia question for our listeners.
What is the name of the main character in Divergent?
Very good question. I like that trivia question. So make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you can find out what the answer is if you don't already know it next episode. So Beth, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
2 things. One, if you are at all curious about getting to know Henrietta the Dragon Slayer, go over to my website, author.bethbarany.com, and you can download a free prequel of Henrietta the Dragon Slayer, my gift to you. And then my other final thought is go have adventures. Read widely, travel widely, meet new people, do new things. When we go out into the world and meet new people, we are enriched, and also we get to bring our own specialness to the world.
Great. Those are awesome words. Thank you for sharing those. Absolutely. Yeah, when we travel with books or in person, we absolutely become richer for it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, wonderful.
I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Beth Barany just a little bit. I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. And as I mentioned at the beginning, make sure if you haven't done so already to download your free copy of the prequel, as well as the first book in the Andy Smithson series.
Click the button to subscribe to the Book Nerd Paradise YouTube channel so you don't miss upcoming authors, giveaways, and answers to trivia questions.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you again next episode.